I would season seven, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, seven. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like
No. Okay.
I'd like to welcome to the show. I'd like to welcome to the Love and Reality podcast from season seven. Katie, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Trying to stay busy, trying to stay busy. We actually had some sunshine today in Baltimore, so it's been pretty cold. So I'm just
Yeah,
rocking with the sunshine.
I'm really enjoying the 70-degree weather and then going to, probably 30 again next week. You know what I mean? It's a lot of
Yep.
fun.
Yep. It's supposed to snow tomorrow night, so that's what I get for thanking the sunshine.
I mean, you got to soak it up. It's February. You know what I mean? We got to soak up the nice weather that we randomly get in February's. But I don't know. I think the groundhog saw this shadow, whatever it's called, for another 6 weeks. So I don't know. We won't get into conspiracy theories around that or anything like that. But before we dive into the show and anything about the show, tell us a little bit about Katie, your upbringing, maybe a little bit of life before Love is Blind. With the show, we see you, but we don't see you. You know what I mean? We don't get a lot of who you are as a person. And obviously, we'll dive into the Love is Blind aspect, but also want people to get to kind of know Katie at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. So I am local to this area. I live in Baltimore City now, but grew up in the suburbs out in Carroll County. My family actually has a beef cattle farm, which is pretty cool. A lot of people, they see me and don't really expect that, I come from the country. I have two sisters. I am the middle, and I am by definition the middle child. Played sports my whole life. I talk about that a little bit on the show. That's part of my storyline, but athletics was a huge part of my life growing up. I even played lacrosse in college, so I was a Division I athlete, which is pretty cool. But I like to say that I had more injuries than accolades. So if anybody looks at my stats, I said it here first. And yeah, I work in sports now. So I had the opportunity. I worked in DC before my job at the Ravens. I worked down in New Orleans in basketball, which was really cool. Loved working in the NBA. And I've been with the Baltimore Ravens. I just finished my 14th season. So again, a little bit about me. Love my family, my friends. I love horror movies, which again, a lot of people don't expect me to say that. I'm a Pilates princess and I still swim and love to stay active. Health, fitness, wellness, all of that stuff is definitely up my alley.
Yeah, I first off, one thing is I didn't know that this was your 14th season with the Ravens.
Mhm.
I didn't register that. I don't know I mean, I don't know how long you had been there, but I didn't know it was 14 years. Kind of what made you want to kind of get into that aspect of the job that you're in now, and how did that come about? And maybe kind of like what's it like working for the team?
Yeah, so originally I wanted to do broadcast journalism. So I wanted to be in your shoes, Ricky. But I kind of realized that that life can kind of be crazy. You might start in some tiny little town in Alabama, have to work your way up, crazy hours. Not only are you writing all your scripts, but you're shooting, you're producing, you're cutting, all of the things you know very well. I don't have to I don't have to tell you. So actually in college, I just told Marissa and Hannah this last weekend. I had a professor that told me I would be better on radio. And I think that was it. I was like, okay, I see, I see what you're saying. And then I pivoted to more PR, more marketing, more business communications. And my first internship was with the Baltimore Ravens during training camp. So a long time ago, they used to host their training camp at McDaniel College in Westminster, where I grew up. So I had the opportunity to work training camp where it honestly was just moving a lot of tents and tables and chairs and entertaining fans. You do player autographs, some events, stayed on for the season, was part of like the halftime show every game. But honestly, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is something I know I'm going to be passionate about. This is something I know I will wake up every day and be happy. And yeah, 14 seasons later, it's kind of crazy. But working for the Ravens, I mean, they're a fantastic organization. I'm biased, but if you ask people in sports, no, they really, they really will say it's a top tier. So it comes from leadership, trickles all the way down to the little guys. And I'm really grateful. We fell a little short this season. I know you and I are constantly going back and forth about football. We fell a little short up in Buffalo, but I was with the Ravens when we won Super Bowl 47. So got to go to New Orleans and, all the parties and the festivities and go to the game. And my family was there with me and got a Super Bowl and got to go to the White House and meet President Obama. So working for the Ravens is good. And normally we have winning seasons. There hasn't been too many crazy losing seasons in there. So when you're winning, life is better.
For sure. And I think that my favorite thing about it is, and I actually just tweeted something a few minutes ago. There's a lot of people down in New Orleans right now. You know what I mean? The Super Bowl's right around the corner, and I love seeing women in sports, right? You know what I mean? It's such a beautiful thing because it's like you probably know more knowledge than most people would in the world of sports, and people discredit you just based on being a woman. But what could you, maybe what kind of advice do you give to little girls, maybe, young teenagers, people in college about entering the world of sports and maybe not being intimidated by that, stereotype?
I love this question. That's something that honestly, going on the show, I was hoping I could tell my story a little bit more because I really wanted to advocate for little Katie, right? When I first came into sports, there weren't very many people that looked like me. All of my mentors did not look like me, did not have my same job. So now, that's something that I take a lot of pride in. I get a lot of emails or LinkedIn messages from girls at universities all over the United States, all over the world that are interested in working in sports. So I do my best to respond to every email. So whether we set up a Zoom call, if I look at your resume, or just, take a couple minutes to talk to you about life, might talk about the show, about that, because, it's pretty cool what we got to do. But my biggest advice is reach out, just like these girls are, reach out, find people in those positions, ask them the questions, because that attitude and that determinedness is not going to leave you as a candidate. And as someone who does hire a lot of interns and entry level people, you can't teach that. There's a lot of things that I can teach you, but if you come in with like a will to attitude, you want to learn, you're a sponge, you can talk to people, you can write a professional email. That's great. Let's start there because I can teach you all of the other things. But definitely you got to put yourself out there because the resumes I'm seeing these days are crazy. I'm like, when do you eat? When do you sleep? And do you shower? Because you're always working and you're an athlete, or there's a lot of competition coming in. So the field is very competitive, but put yourself out there, do all the things as early as possible, build those relationships, and always keep networking.
Obviously, with your background and diving into the show a little bit, what's that kind of conversation like maybe with your bosses? Like, hey, I'm approaching the idea because you are a public-esque figure, you are a
Mhm.
representative of the team.
Yeah.
So it's like, what was that conversation like with them as you thought about approaching to go on the show?
So I think it was like midsummer, I needed a full commitment. And in May, like the second week of May, usually the NFL schedule comes out. And there was a certain amount of time that I needed to be gone and completely off the radar. No email, no phone, nothing. And I'm waiting for the schedule to come out because it was a decent amount of time. And normally you don't get, two, three, four, whatever away games. And the schedule comes out, and we were away at the Browns, away at the Steelers, and then away in London, which, like, when your team goes overseas, it just like the office shuts down if you're not traveling. So it was, I still to this day, like, I still get goosebumps talking about it because that's just something that doesn't happen. And I went to my senior vice president of marketing and I said, this is going to be one of the weirdest questions you've ever gotten. But I want to go on reality TV. Can we make this happen? And yeah, no, he worked with me. Our team is amazing. I had a bunch of people kind of help pull my weight while I was gone. And they're like, we can make this happen. Again, Ravens is a family organization. Everyone knows each other personally and professionally. So I think he knew how much I needed this personally. And then the opportunities that it could lead to also. So they were great. They were like, if we can make this work, let's do it. And I had so many people hold down the fort while I was gone. And, even just like the little like good luck cards and the little gifts and stuff they sent before my last day, because it was going to be a wild adventure. And when it was actual reality and we were going, it was really nice to have those people in my corners and know that I was taken care of.
For sure. So what's maybe the expectations? And well, first off, did you had watched prior seasons? I'm assuming
Mhm.
maybe yes. Okay. So what's kind of maybe expectations? Did you set a bar? Are you kind of a person, not to say anybody make a list or anything, not to bring that up, but did you have any expectations going into the show or any hopes going into the show, or were you
Ricky,
just kind of show up and do it?
No, Ricky, my husband was there. You couldn't convince me otherwise. Like I was telling everybody, well, when my fiance comes back and for my wedding this and wedding that, and oh, for Christmas, like yeah, put another place next to me and Thanksgiving, don't forget that one too. And that's how I was talking. I was convinced, and I love Love Is Blind. I do believe in it. Now, after going through it, I still believe in parts of it. As a viewer, I was like wholeheartedly into it, and I don't watch a lot of reality TV. But I do love Married at First Sight too. So I think I think I have a problem. I think I'm just delusional. But I really did. Like I'm like my husband's there. I'm 35 going into it. I had the possibility of being the oldest female or one of the oldest females. So you kind of think about that and I was serious. I was like this is something that and the way my life is, like I have like the weirdest things always happen to me. Like when you tell a crazy story, they're like, yeah, like that would happen to you, Kate. So to find love on a reality TV show was not out of the realm of possibilities for me.
So, what kind of maybe the plan of attack that you maybe had whenever you're first kind of walking into the pods and thinking about how am I going to approach each of these dates?
Sure. You in the beginning only get a few minutes and it kind of, escalates. The dates get longer. So in the very beginning, I was just like, you have to be personable, you have to be outgoing. They can't see you like you got to be bubbly, you got to be schmoozy, you got to do all these things. And I didn't really have a strategy going in. The first couple of dates you can only talk about so much. So I was like, let's just try to be like kind of what you asked me, like who's Katie? Who is Katie? But present it in a way with a lot of energy because when you can't see somebody, you need that energy. Because I remember having dates and like writing in my journal, boring or low energy and like putting them really low because even if we might have been compatible in real life, it wasn't in that scenario because you want somebody that's excited, you want somebody that wants to be there. But no real strategy. I really just wanted to go in and be myself. And there were times of reflection where I was like, I'm in over my head. I shouldn't have done this. I'm boring. Like I had this one thought, and like I don't know if this sounds vain, but I was like, oh my gosh, maybe like people do only like me because of the way I look, or you kind of really you have a lot of interesting thoughts when you're in the lounge in the pods because you're just completely in the most uncomfortable situation. And I don't want uncomfortable to sound like so negative. It's just like where else in life you're going to be in the situation where you are so uncomfortable, you are so forced to grow and have thoughts you've never had before. And that's what Love is Blind was like for me.
Yeah, I mean it's an experiment, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's taking away the dating apps. It's taking away obviously the look element of things, and as we've seen throughout seasons, it does play an important part to that second phase of the experiment. Early on, did you find yourself connecting with people? Obviously, like there's a lot of what we didn't see when it comes to you. Who were some of those connections? Maybe what was some things about them, and how was maybe your journaling when you started to maybe attach yourself to certain individuals?
Yeah, that's a great question. I haven't really talked a ton about this because my connections, my one and two actually ended up getting married. So out of like respect for their relationships, I didn't want to talk too much about it, but it's been well over a year, so let's talk about it. So Tyler was a connection from the very beginning. We had a lot of things in common. He was very easy to talk to. I kind of just always felt like I just had a crush on Tyler and like wanted to get to know a little bit more. Another thing about me that people didn't get to learn is that I lost my mom 10 years ago to breast cancer. And Tyler was the first person that I like opened up and talked about that with. He also was very close to his grandmother who had passed. So again, without seeing these people, you get these like crazy type of like emotional bonds. I never had a romantic connection though. I will say that. Like I never, when people are coming in like, oh, that's my husband, this is my future husband, this is that. We said I love you, and I'm like, I just like can't say I love you to a wall. Like I'm not there yet. And then Garrett was somebody for me who was not like super exciting, but I think if you were to put him on paper, I think we would match a lot on paper. I think he would check a lot of those boxes. I think he would be somebody that was more, less of like the chemistry and more of the reliability, all of those things that you're kind of looking for and the longevity of a relationship. And, there were definitely some things, some similarities with our families. And yeah, it really came down to those two guys. What the viewers get to see is me and Nick Dorca, Nikki D. And again, We did. We had connection from the beginning, and we talked about that on the show. And I pretty quickly knew Nick wasn't for me. Our date, when somebody gives you butterflies, I learned more recently that could be a red flag. So I leaned, I leaned into that. And no, Nick's fine, but it's just like you remind me of all the guys that I dated in my 20s, even early 30s. And for me, I'm like, if I came all the way out here, if I'm one of thousands that applied, I'm going to do this differently. I'm not going to chase the butterflies. I'm not going to chase that chemistry. I'm going to listen to my gut. Really write down things that are valuable to me, to figure out like what I want in a partner. And I think the biggest thing too is you do get in there and it becomes competitive. Like you hear people talking about like, I want to get out of the pods. We're going to make it out of the pods. We're going to Mexico. And it's really hard to not get caught up in that. And even though, both of those guys, as my one and two, ended up breaking up with me, so I didn't really have a say. I am happy though that I left on those terms, and not begging somebody to take me back or are you sure? And every breakup I think was very graceful on my part. That's probably why you didn't see it on TV because I didn't make a commotion. But, I thank them for the part they played in my journey and wish them luck. And, Tyler and Ashley's connection was never what we were going to have. And same with Garrett and Taylor. So seeing that back, especially, it's like I never questioned it. But it was great to see that they were able to find love or they were able to find partners in the process.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the interesting dynamic is because, and you can speak to this obviously with those connections, it's you see the process, right? And it's almost like when you first watched this show, I was like, man, you really are saying like I love you. This is like how many days is this? Like, but then you kind of break down and have those conversations with people on our show. You're on longer dates. You're getting like
Mhm.
you're forced to get to know each other on an intimate level that's beyond a first date. First date, you might go to a restaurant, you might sit down, you might be able to half hear the conversation because of the people around you. You're not
Yeah.
asking you're not getting married in 3 weeks or engaged in, you know what I mean? So,
Well, not yet. Not yet, at
well,
least.
exactly. Not yet. Not yet. You know what I mean? But that dynamic, you say you didn't get there, right? With anybody there, but
Mhm.
did it kind of surprise you that maybe you were, obviously, as you mentioned, a little bit more vulnerable to like Tyler and the other people that you were Tyler, that you were talking to in the pods?
Yeah, definitely you had to be vulnerable. That was one of those things. You would have moments every once in a while where whoever you were dating would be like, "Oh, I don't want to go into more detail because the cameras." And I'm like, "You have to. Like, I need to know these things about you. Like, I'm going to push you. I came on knowing that like I'm going to put everything out there." So I think when it comes to vulnerability, I was actually surprised. I thought the guys were way more vulnerable than any guy that I've ever dated in the real world, but I liked dating behind a wall. I liked that you were just focused on the conversation. There weren't distractions. You weren't thinking like, oh, you're going to go home and scroll or ask your buddies about me or this and that. Because I'm in Baltimore, so everybody knows each other. So when you eliminate all of that, I think it's a lot easier to be vulnerable. And again, you came all the way out here. You're one of thousands. Like, why not really lean in and be as vulnerable as you can? And not only dating, but friendships. I definitely used to make fun of the girls on Love is Blind, being like, that's my best friend. I'd be like, okay, did you come on here with your best friend? And then it happened to me. Like, it quite literally happened to me. Hannah and Marissa, huge blessings in my life. I'm so thankful for them. But yeah, very quickly, like instantly, Marissa and I sat in front of each other and behind each other on the plane. And I saw her, I'm texting my best friend, like, oh my God, this girl's so beautiful. She's going to be on the show. I'm going to be her friend. And then later we find out that she's having the same conversation with her best friend. So again, like an instant connection without even really talking. So I think that was really cool. That was one of my biggest takeaways. But again, it to your point, it's all vulnerability and you really did have to put yourself out there.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I always make fun of too. You're watching, oh, this is my best friend now. But then there's a level to it of like, only these people, only a specific amount of people know what I'm going through, right? You know what I
Right.
mean? You've only been through this process and you understand this process. And as you grew closer, obviously, to Marissa and Hannah, as they're going through it, you know what I mean? You might not be in that process, but I'm sure you're having those conversations. So you're connected to their journey now because
Yeah.
you guys became friends. So it's like
Mhm.
and you understand because you came from the pods as well. Has that was that one of the your kind of favorite things that came from your time on the show?
Absolutely. There's two things. It's that friendship. And, you had a really great point. So Hannah and Marissa both get engaged. They go to Mexico again, still no contact. I'm sitting at home, like twiddling my thumbs. Like, I'm thinking like they forgot about me. Like we're not friends anymore. My anxious attachment's really coming out. But when they get their phones back, I was the first person they FaceTimed. And I sat here and I cried. I think I was about to go out for like a walk or a swim or something. And I'm sitting here crying. Like, they're like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I thought you forgot about me. I thought you didn't love me anymore. But again, that was just the level of our friendship, right? Like that I was one of the first person, if not the first, that they FaceTime to kind of check in with me and like, what's going on out there? What's going on here? And like, tell me all the tea. But the second thing too, I think really I needed this for mental health. I had been somebody who's never been in therapy. Growing up, I didn't really, there was a stigma, from how I was raised or the generation that I was raised in. And someone who lost their mom prematurely in life and has been gone for 10 years that saw them battle cancer definitely needed help grieving. And I didn't know how much help I needed and how that was carrying through to relationships, to friendships, all of those things. So, love is blind. Yes, they gave me friends, and I'm so grateful and thankful for them because now, like at 36, all of my best friends pretty much got married like 8, 10 years ago. They've got 2, 3 kids. It's tough. I can't just call them and be like, hey, I want to go out. Let's do this and let's do that. Or hey, let's go on vacation. They've got a lot more responsibilities than I do. So having those friendships I don't want to say late 30s. I'm in my mid 30s still. Was super important to me because I needed to add that to my foundation. And then you put the mental health stuff in there. And the show provided those resources for me. So I think people can kind of be nitpicky on Love is Blind and the mental health, but I'm an advocate for it. They created that space and that environment for me to realize like these are things that you need to explore, you need to heal from. And even now in dating, like there's so many things that I'm picking up on in the real world, right? That I'm like, there's still more work to do. So I love the self-discovery. I think I'm a pretty self-aware person, but definitely because they didn't give me a husband, they gave me best friends and my mental health. So
They gave me
that's
best
not a
friends and
consolation prize. That's the grand
right,
prize.
exactly. You got the participation trophy. Sorry.
No, the husband would have been the participation
Well,
trophy.
yeah.
Not me.
Sorry. Um, and I think that and that's awesome, right? Because obviously there's a stigma around a lot of what transpires throughout the show, but it's nice to know. But my question, how did the show kind of shape Katie as the person, and then also what Katie's looking for in a man?
Yeah. I think when it comes to dating, the biggest takeaway was I used to lean very heavy chemistry, and now I lean more heavy compatibility. So I also had a lot of anxiety around dating. I would come home from a bad first date, or probably wasn't even that bad, but I would get so worked up before it. You go on Love is Blind, and like you don't have time to do that. Like you're on camera, you're mic'd up, like you got to put your best face that they can't see, best face on. Um, and all of that just really translated. I left Love is Blind with like this crazy confidence that I wish you could bottle up and that you could sell. And it was just like, okay, if I can do that, and if I got through all of that craziness, like in this real world, then I can do anything, especially with dating. So I've really just been trying to do that. And again, remember the lessons I learned in there. Even when there's certain days you want to talk about certain things and you have prompts and people ask you questions, it's like, oh my gosh, my ex and I dated on and off for 3 years and we never talked about this. Like, why didn't we talk about this? And that was someone at the time I like reached out to and I was like, hey, I've learned a lot. Like, if you've an hour of your time, I kind of want to just like teach you how we aren't dating properly. But it's just there's so many things to learn and it's such a process and it is hard work. And that's yeah, Love is Wine taught me all of that and gave me the resources and the friends who are there when the date goes bad or me and fall in love date two and they're like, okay, Katie, let's be reasonable. So
Let's reel it in a little bit, right?
yeah, reel it in a little bit, Kate.
I think one of the fascinating things and one of the fun things I watched kind of you do was you got to bring the cast into your world, right? You know what I mean? You get to bring someone to the games, you got to let them experiment. How was that for like you? Obviously, your time on the show was limited, but you were able to bring some of these individuals into your world and show them what you get to do.
Honestly, that was one of the best days of 2024. That goes down as probably one of my top five moments in sports, I think. To be able, I kept saying like I had my Love is Blind world and then my real world. So I was living like two worlds. And days like that just really made it feel like, no, this is just one world, Kate. Like, and everybody can live together and be happy. But I didn't know who was going to come out. We invited all the main cast and had a great response. And even people that were like Commanders or Eagles fans or, had no association to football were like, oh, I want a Lamar jersey, and I'm like, well, okay, I'm doing my job. It's fan development. And I do host like influencers and celebrities. So it wasn't out of the realm of possibilities, but we had so much fun that day. I was jealous. They got to go tailgate before, and then they were down on the field with me. We all did our crowd wave, and then we went out and fed Hill, and one of the bars there took care of us. And it's so great to get together with the girls. Like we really do have great camaraderie. A lot of us are really close, and everybody said we needed this. We were just, I think the reunion had just aired, and it was heavy. A lot of people are being very heavily criticized, and just to have a good day out in Baltimore, where for some reason Baltimore people just care a little bit less about Love is Blind. I think DC is like, who are you? Who do you know? What do you do? Type of mentality. So when you're in Baltimore, it's just a bunch of good old people just having a good time. And the Ravens won. It was a great game against the Broncos. So everybody was happy all around. And yeah, it was definitely a day that we needed. That was a lot of fun. And you got to have conversations and talk to people that you really like I didn't spend much time with. So yeah.
Yeah, obviously we have the social media aspect of things, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Everybody is, right and you're wrong and you should
Yeah.
have done this and should have done that. And I think there was a lot of that whenever you do make that reappearance to the show, you know what I mean? There was that whole
Yeah.
conversation with Nick and how it was, in my opinion, watching it is like it was blown into like this nuclear war across social media aspect of things. How did you, even all but small there, how do you handle and maybe your history within sports obviously probably helped you, and now that I think about it, probably helped you prepare for the hate. I know you have some war stories about going to specific cities, but did that kind of your background kind of prepare you for any hate that would have came your way?
I remember before the show started being like, okay, I have two sisters. I played sports my whole life. Like, if you want some nasty girls, now my sisters are fantastic, but if you want some nasty girls, talk to your teammates. Those are going to be some of the people that are going to humble you the most. And I'm humble's like polite. So I'm like, you know what? Any insecurity, I feel like I've already had it. I came in like let's just do this, be yourself and see what happens. And I was really lucky. I think, not following my story, you didn't get to see me date, you didn't get to see me mess up, you didn't get to see me say ridiculous things. And the cast it's just so nitpicky the way people are. And damned if you do, damned if you don't. But coming back to that party, so I was the only girl brought back, and into a room of, I say all my exes, right? Like all people that on the show I dated and with new fiancés, and everybody was just like extra sensitive. And I don't blame them because it's kind of like this like pressure cooker situation where every feeling is just like so much more intense. And that's exactly what you see happen. And being off the cameras for a while and then coming back in, one, you're just excited to see everybody. Two, you're meeting the guys for the first time. Besides like what you see on social media and having a chance to see them and talk to them. And from my opinion, I was just like, I want to thank them for my journey and ask how things are going. But with Nick, that definitely was something that happened at the very end of the night, and we were asked to talk, and I didn't think anything of it, right? Like I'm coming in knowing that I have to be respectful towards Ashley and I have to be respectful towards Garrett. But with Nick, like I hadn't dated Nick in so long, and Hannah really is one of my closest friends. So you're right. The whole thing really got blown out of proportion. And again, I think like it was just a conversation we had, but that's also reality TV. You can watch it and you see it edited different ways, or that like we're both like cackle laughing like three or four different times. And that scene probably only happened once, right? But poor Hannah, just the whole thing, they're trying to figure out, am I getting married in 10 days? Or like, is this the person I want to spend the rest of my life with? And the hours that you film and all of that stuff is just, it's a lot. It was a lot of pressure. So I came in and it was just, I didn't have my guard up with Nick, and nor should I had, right? Like I think everything that we talked about, I really didn't get criticized that hard. I'm very thankful for that. I think I had a couple people saying I was a little too flirty, but Nick and I are really charismatic people. Like we can flirt with a wall, you know? So that's what you're gonna get. And I did have time because Nick came to the football game, and that's the only time in real life like we've talked. Not even at the reunion. I didn't talk to him at the reunion. So all these, oh, full send Katie and Nick. I was like, sorry to disappoint you guys, but it's not gonna happen.
Like, hey, I dated him like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean?
That's what
Like
it feels like. That's what it feels
theoretically.
like. It's like
Yeah.
my high school ex has entered the building. Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course, what was the conversation like? Of course, obviously with that scene, then you kind of get that call to be at the reunion.
Yeah.
Reunion was kind of a pressure cooker, always is
Mhm.
always all the dramas left on the table. What's that conversation like then being brought into it, you know, you the way that you were, right? What's that conversation like and kind of your expectations and reaction to that?
So I only had a couple days heads up. So first and foremost, I was just struggling to get some stuff together. And then I just like, okay, I don't care. I'll just wear something that I've worn before. And honestly, that was the most criticized thing, was what I was wearing. And again, there is nothing like you can't shame me for my body. I'm very comfortable. I'm very confident. So all that stuff just made me giggle. So I was like, okay, that's my little 10% of what everybody else got. But it is high pressure. There's an audience. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but there's an audience behind you. And just like a lot of reality TV shows, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. So you're just kind of like waiting and anticipation, anxieties are building a little bit. You're excited to see everybody, but you know you're there for a reason. Right. So, like, you may not know what questions are coming your way, or, you might be put on the spot when you're not expecting it, or, I knew there was going to be questions about Marissa and her breakup. Of course, there was going to be questions about Hannah. And at that point, Hannah and I hadn't really talked that much. I think like poor Hannah, she was dealing with all of that stuff. I was kind of in this world of just like, what's going on, trying to get my job done in football season and trying to balance this and all the craziness of it. I think it was just like, I was like a deer in headlights per se. So not being able to really talk to her much before, you don't really know what's going to happen. And I was luckily kind of off stage, but everybody else is on stage with all the bright lights and everybody looking at you. So it's an uncomfortable situation. I was happy to be back, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I was happy to be back, but you just really don't know what's coming your way. You gotta be ready. But again, sports, right? Like whatever's thrown at you, you gotta just get back in there and go again and do your best, navigate as you can.
Absolutely. So obviously, with your experience, Kashore, what was it kind of like watching it and living this season with this cast that you knew?
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird. I still feel like Love is Blind was this thing that I did with my friends. Like I don't know, it doesn't seem like, oh, you're on Netflix. Like Marissa's the cover image, like I don't think about it like that. I'm like, no, like she was the girl that was living with me and like I know her family and she knows my family. It doesn't feel like we were on Netflix, but to watch it back because I was not there for those moments. I know bits and pieces, but they don't know what's going to be shown. None of us know what's going to be shown. So it was kind of crazy to see everything back. I really don't have any type of relationship with Ramses, but for no reason. It's just like I didn't date him. I wasn't engaged, so I didn't get to know him. So to see like that's like her biggest heartbreak of her life, I'm like, wow, I only know it from one side. And to see it play out, I'm like, okay. So I think that's how it went. And you have to remember it is reality TV at the end of the day. And two, with Hannah, I think Hannah and Nick's relationship is a lot different than I thought it was going to be. It was very different than the pods. But again, you get in the real world and you have all that pressure on you. You got to make a decision in 3 weeks or less. Like, it's chaotic.
Yeah, that it is. It is for sure. All right. So what is next for Katie?
That's a great question, Ricky. You're hitting me with all the good ones. What's next for me? I think, I'm excited for my next season if I'm with the Ravens. I'm excited for my opportunities at work. I'm excited for the little door that Love is Wine has opened up for me in this space. I've always loved the influencer space, the content space, more on like the managing side. I could always see that being a career destination for me next. Um, I don't know if I'd ever do a reality TV show. Everybody wants to know that question. Now that you have one under your belt, I'm like, I love the TV stuff. Like I always have, right? I wanted to be in broadcast, so I get it. And I was that person that was kind of going off set to be like, oh, the cameraman and this and that. And they're like, hey, like come back. You can't be back there. Because I just wanted to see everything. And I was trying to explain to the girls, like, there's a control room and all of us are on these cameras and we're labeled, girl one, or if it is our name or whatever, to what the production looks like. But, I am not somebody that is really good at like the where do you see yourself in 5 years question. But I'm dating. I'm doing my best there. Baltimore is very small, so between Baltimore and DC, trying to figure that out. And right after when the show was airing, I did meet somebody and we've been seeing each other for a bit. And so we'll see kind of what happens there, but it's unpredictable. And I talk about all the lessons that I continue to learn. So navigating that space, I definitely would love a relationship to be first before anything in my profession because I've killed that, right? Like I've done that. I got my dream job at 23. Like it's definitely time to fill that personal bucket. So that's where a lot of my energy is being spent right now. And it's the off season, so I'm going on vacation and I'm going to Florida this weekend and I'm going to get a tan. And I'm going to Jamaica with my family and I'm going to enjoy this time, go visit my sister in LA, like reflect back on Katie that I'm not just football.
I like that. I like that. All right, before we go, I'm just gonna hit you with some quick fire questions.
Okay.
Um, I'll start off. I'll start off easy. All right, I'll start off easy.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna start off easy. We'll go coffee or tea,
Ooh. Lately, I've been a tea girly, so I'm going to go tea.
beer or wine.
Ooh, beer. I love both. I'll drink anything, but again, these country roots, drinking Keystone Light, bonfires on the farm, like beer all day.
Is hot dog a sandwich?
No.
Thank you. One, you already answered this, but I'm gonna put you on the spot anyway. One reality show you'd want to be on.
Ooh, that's a great question. I feel like it can't be dating because I'm over that. Maybe like an Amazing Race type of, or like what is the one where you see it's like professional athletes or reality stars where they go and they're like test and push to like the limit. What is
Yeah,
that one?
I'm gonna sign you and Marissa up. We'll put you on the next season of Amazing Race. You know what I mean?
Honestly, that would be really good because we just lived together. She moved in May and she just moved out. And that was the best roommate I've ever had. Like, I don't know. I was like, clearly, I'm 36. I need to live by myself. But if you want to move back in, like, you can. So, yeah, no, that'd be good. And she's with the Navy, she's been all over the world. And yeah, that would be, Ricky, put in a good word. That'd be a good show.
I got you. Who's gonna win the Super Bowl?
I want I want the Eagles to win because I have a hard time with the Chiefs, you know this. And I also say that because I know where your alliances lie. But do I think they're going to win? I think it's going to be tough for the Eagles to beat the Chiefs, but I'm going Eagles.
Is love really blind?
Is love really blind? If I have to say yes or no, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no.
Top three favorite Ravens players.
Ooh. Top three favorite Ravens players. Okay. I love Lamar Jackson. He's fantastic. He's definitely in my top three. Um, I I loved, he's no longer there. He wasn't with the Ravens too long, but Orlando Brown Jr., great guy, big personality, just super like loved to talk to everybody, came to all of our events, was a great time, always had a smile on his face. It was a cool story with his dad and the history there. So I loved like the story and the overlapping of all of that. And plus he was so fantastic. And then my number three, it's like these are the hardest questions. I I feel like as soon as I get off with you, I'm going to think of like everybody else that I loved. But Suggs was great. He was a character, and like he's doing really well. He comes back for like the legend stuff, and it's great to see that he hasn't lost too much of his silliness because yeah, he was notorious for like hiding places and would jump out and scare you and would like love to mess with the interns but just like all good humor and. You got a lot of really good stuff with social with him. Like some of the stuff he would say, especially with the Steelers rivalries, or he would come out intros in like the Bane mask. Like I love that personality. And also in sports, I always play defense. So I feel like I really always lined with the defenders.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.